Kind of a crazy week, so I have a couple of announcements. The first announcement is that we will not be having a meeting here next week, next Wednesday, to conclude this. We're gonna have to bump it out to February. I just heard back from the lady that reserves this room, and just by a show of hands, the first Wednesday in February or the third Wednesday in February?
First.
Okay, so we will do the first Wednesday in February. She says it's open, so I will send that to her now, and hopefully we'll have the room reserved. Wendy will not be here, and she is not on the phone. Doug is not here, but he is on the phone over here. So the goal at the end of the meeting last month was to have at least 30 minutes for public comment. And the way public comment works in this process is you get 3 minutes to come up here and make your speech. This is not an interactive. We do not, as the committee, do not interact. This is just your time to say what you think of what we're doing. So this isn't kind of a question and answer situation. This is where you get to say your piece, okay? And I'm gonna try to hold it exactly tight to 3 minutes. So when your 3 minutes starts, when you get up here, you're ready. You do your 3 minute talk, and then you sit down. I am going to expect people to be polite. If you don't agree with what somebody's saying, or if you do agree with what somebody's saying, what you do by making announcements from the crowd is you limit their ability to be heard. So we're gonna have a nice, calm, respectful interaction with ideas here, and people get to say their piece, okay?
Question?
Yes, sir.
That the first Wednesday in February, that'd be at 10 o'clock also?
It would.
That would be the first, not the 8th?
The first,
Okay.
yes. It turns out the 8th is booked, so the first or the 15th were my two choices.
Wait, you said
But we're going with the first.
February 1st.
1st, 10 to noon, we will be here.
A Wednesday.
Wednesday. Okay. The reason we're here, and I would like to thank again all the people that have represented or come in and been involved in this committee. To publicly go through the collection policy of the Boundary County Library, we will forward a recommended policy to the Board of Trustees, and it is not an official policy. We are only providing a recommendation to the board. The board has to vote to agree. The plan today is go through to go back through the changes we made last time, and I know there were some questions about it, but again, to my mind, it's important that we do this in a public venue, so all the changes we're gonna make are gonna be public. So we will go through what we did last time and the time before if we need to, and we'll make those changes, and then I will do my best to capture that and put it out before the next meeting, as soon as I can, actually. I covered the speaking part. Rules, we are not here to discuss current or past employees of the library. The collections policy is an area of great concern. We're making this an open and public process. We expect people to address each other in an open and respectful way. Our current policy and our future policy will all follow state and federal laws and codes. And our next meeting will be at the Armory from 10 to 12, Wednesday, the 1st of February.
The first Wednesday.
Wednesday, the 1st. Wednesday. Yes.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
That's where I got confused.
No, it's a little, it's, okay. All right, so are there any questions about the big load of stuff I just said? Okay, and we're all clear on where we're going? And also, I have a sign-up sheet. And again, our goal is for 30 minutes of public interaction, and at this point, because we're gonna have to probably do another meeting, we could probably just stop at 11:30 and do our public comment section. Or whenever we have the time, you know, if 3 people sign up, we'll probably stop at 11:45. And the last thing is, could you please turn your phones on airplane or mute or whatever is required so that we don't do that? Okay. All right. So, first of all, we gotta go through the paperwork associated with this whole process. So, did everybody get a chance to look at the agenda for today? Okay. And I'm sorry, Doug, I did not have that electronic for you. I will try and get an email set up, and if you let me know a couple of days before, I can email this packet of stuff to you.
Okay.
To anybody that can attend.
Because I was going through, maybe you did send me, I was going through my emails this morning, but, I thought I did see it. Let's, we'll double check and, I'll get that back. So, thank you.
Okay,
Can-
what I'll do is, when I get home today, from town, I will email you everything that I have in front of me right now.
Can we turn him up? Cause I can't hear him. Oh, that's it?
I think that's it. The speaker didn't work.
Okay.
Do you need a charger?
No, it's just not working,
Okay.
typically.
Well, it's electronic. As soon as you need them for sure, they're gonna fail. Okay, so, if everybody here that has a copy of the agenda has looked at it, I would need a motion to,
Do we need to do roll call first?
oh, sorry, roll call,
It's on the agenda.
it is. Well, I think we need to accept the agenda and then,
It says, it's up first here.
okay. Okay, oh, really? All right, cool.
Wait, on the agenda is first,
Yeah.
so before the approval of agenda, so.
But it was written by me, which doesn't necessarily make
Oh,
it
okay.
perfect. Let me send a note to this, make sure we can reserve this space real quick. And then, so roll call, we have Doug Nowak on the phone,
Maureen,
Charlene Wells.
Laura Anderson.
and Lee Colson. Okay, and then a motion to approve the agenda?
I make a motion that we approve the agenda.
second.
Okay. Okay. And then a vote,
Aye.
okay,
Aye.
all agree. And then the lady just sent me back that we have the room for the first Wednesday in February, which is February 1st. Is that clear then? And then I will put my phone on airplane. Cause that would be really embarrassing. Okay, so the agenda, the next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from December 7th. And, did everybody get a chance? Doug, did you get a chance to go through the, minutes?
Minutes from the last meeting, I did, get a chance to go through it and I'll read through it.
Anybody else have any comments about the,
So I haven't gone through all of the minutes specifically, but the material that you sent out, previously had some things in it that were missing from our last meeting.
okay,
So if that matches, then I don't approve it.
I
Some
think a
things
lot
were
of that
missing.
got fixed in the most recent version here.
so to me, the one thing I did change is I turned the first paragraph in 6.7 or 6.6.
The reconsideration.
The reconsideration section, it came out as yellow and it was supposed to be red, and it was the contentious paragraph. The one that said,
Yeah, that first, I'm not even, because you were clear that you didn't adjust the reconsideration policy. There were just a couple other little things. That it looked like.
okay, were there any other? Hold on, 6.4 was for me.
6.4, 1, 2, 3, 4, the fifth paragraph down.
Oh,
We had taken out the Democratic Society.
hello? Hello, Doug? He just called back. So I don't know what happened to him.
That paragraph on, that starts relying on the principles of intellectual freedom, we had taken out a democratic society. Is that listed in the minutes? Cause it wasn't updated in the version. It's on the second page, middle down.
So we took that out?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't.
And then in 6.5, on this one you just gave us.
That's what I have in my notes also, that we could take that out.
Yeah, I did, well.
So in 6.5, the second paragraph starts with using selection practices that are flexible and responsive. We had taken out that whole second part of the paragraph. After is, so we said, using selection practices that are flexible and responsive to the changing needs of the community. We took out the rest of it and added, staff contributes to the development of the collections by engaging in open, continuous two-way communication with library patrons. We did not want it to talk about repeated, and then we didn't want the special population groups in.
So the end of that sentence, so it's using selection practices that are flexible and responsible to the changing needs of the community.
Yes. Staff,
And with, how does that sentence go?
The Boundary County Library Building and Maintenance Collection for the general public, while recognizing the needs of special population groups, we took out.
we took all of that out.
So how does it go?
It goes, using selection practices that are flexible and responsive to the changing needs of the community, the Boundary County Library builds and maintains collections for the general public.
Okay, so,
No.
No.
Actually, it says, using selection practices that are flexible and responsive to the changing needs of the community. So it's,
So that paragraph should go, using selection practices that are flexible and responsive to the changing needs of the community.
that's it.
Staff contributes to the
No, we
develop.
took the rest of it out.
no, we added something to it.
Oh, did we? Okay.
And then, so I'm stopping at the end of community, and then I'm reading off her, your sticky note.
And I wrote it from, I listened to the recording.
Okay.
And wrote it how it was.
Staff contributes to the development of collections by engaging in open, continuous, two-way communication with library patrons, period.
Yes, and that was the end.
And that was the end.
Yeah, that is what I have too in my notes. And, you know, just to clarify, even like looking at 6.4, section criteria, I saw that, you know, we did take out, the word democratic society on paragraph,
Okay.
fifth paragraph down. So I think probably what might have happened is, you know, an old draft got sent out. I do that stuff all the time. In fact, I just sent an email out, before we did here, and I sent the wrong attachment, so maybe that is what happened.
Well, and I'm certainly willing to believe that I can mess this up, so that's not a concern. I just wanna make sure, to me, the most important thing is to make sure that the copy I send out is as close as I can get it, and then if it needs changed, we're gonna come here and change it as a group.
I think I only,
Right.
Which is totally fine,
I think
and
I
I
only
don't mind
found
doing
two more mistakes is all, if you want me to
that.
bring
Okay,
that up real quick.
so Democratic, we already covered. This change in sentence, we already covered. What else?
Under the large print collection, we were gonna combine that into one paragraph.
All that is sounding really familiar.
Like I said, I haven't looked through your minutes to see if your minutes didn't match.
Well, when I do the minutes, I don't really go into it that in depth. What I say is, this is discussed, and I try and write down the name of the people that discuss it. So I don't,
Yeah, we're just gonna put 34 and 35 together. And then end it at materials and take off maybe included.
yeah, see, I remember doing that. So I must have sent out the wrong copy.
Yeah, immediate collection,
Did-
you were
and-
gonna take out one thing, and those are the notes
Yeah.
that I found that
And
were
take,
different.
and take the word chiefly out.
Yeah, and I have chiefly marked as
Yeah,
being
yeah,
out.
you did.
Mhm.
So,
So
I
just
don't know,
leave
maybe
this-
I didn't save the right version before I sent it out or something. I
These
don't
two
know.
just together,
Okay.
Yeah,
and
And
then
what-
take off maybe included.
and then just right there also under media collection, we took out, the collection does not include materials produced specifically for classroom use. We felt like that was redundant.
Yeah, I've done something wrong like this.
And I can actually see it here in the minutes, I just found that one right here. It just wasn't, it's in the minutes, but it wasn't done in the.
Yeah. Sorry.
Just take it down, that's it.
You get what you pay for. All right, so I will make those corrections, and then I was optimistic and thought the only one was the 6.7 contentious paragraph. And so I already marked that as coming out. But I will make these changes and I'll get them out to you. And then if you have things that you see that I obviously have missed like this, you can go ahead and send me an email and I'll review it.
Yeah, I didn't know if it was something that I had to wait for the meeting, or if it was something that I could just send to you.
So for some of these smaller ones, that like the democracy and not that democracy is small, but these smaller non-contentious issues, I'm certainly going
Since
to
we've already talked
make the
about.
verbiage
Okay.
straight.
To clarify.
To clarify, and honestly, I actually remembered fixing the large print thing, so I've done something wrong with my copy.
Well, next time, can we not do the color codes and just go ahead and
That
put
was my
in
goal,
what
was to
we
print it out as
want
it was
in
gonna
there,
be.
instead of having all this color codes that just
Right.
jumbles things up.
So
So
my
then-
hope
then
is
if we
that at
have
the end
any
of this meeting, I will
differences.
send out the exact copy the way it's gonna be.
Right.
And then we have our next meeting in February, that we will just go through and read it and everybody say, yes, that's exactly what I
Right.
meant.
Right.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if this is the way you were gonna turn it into the board, or if you
No,
were
it
gonna.
was gonna go as a solid black and white document.
I can see pros and cons to both, but.
I think we have enough color copies.
Yeah, well, and that really was my main concern, is we're gonna send out 15 copies of this. And,
Right.
we're not gonna
Yeah.
know, and I had to do 3 copies of it, and I've already messed up the third
Well,
one,
I'm
so-
glad have been putting the dates on the bottom,
Right.
Yeah.
otherwise I would be very confused.
I know.
Right, yeah.
I know. Okay, so basically.
That's all the changes you have there.
That is it, and I couldn't find the other ones, but I did find the one in here that you had written it in the minutes.
So then, are we willing to accept the minutes as is? Okay,
As adapted,
Yeah,
as adapted.
that we just changed the minutes, well, the minutes are.
The minutes are the
have it
same,
in
the
them,
draft
yeah.
is different.
Okay.
yeah, since I can find the one, I'm fairly confident that they're all in here, it just didn't get made to.
Well, and frankly, I certainly remember changing the large print,
Right,
so
yeah.
it's
Right.
saved something different in my computer.
By signing off on the minutes, we're just agreeing to what we
Right.
just discussed, so it's cool, it's okay.
Yeah,
Okay. So, I need a motion for the minutes,
Except,
Second.
okay? And I just have to, write your name backward. Okay, and then, Doug, have you kind of followed what we're doing here, Doug? Are you able to hear us?
Yeah, no, I'm getting back, I know, phone disconnected, so I'm getting spun back up in the conversation, but, yeah, looking at it, with the minutes, with adjusting how, sometimes the wrong drafts go out, I get it. So yeah, tracking all, and we're good to go.
Okay. All right.
And I'm also tracking that, after this, we will send out the, the correct draft with, all the compiled, work we've done from, day one to time down, current time, so, okay, got it.
Well, and it will come out as just a plain black and white, like we are planning on passing it to the board.
Right, I followed
Okay.
that, yep.
Okay. So, if we're clear, we have a motion and a second. Do we agree to accept the minutes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Alright. So then that is it as far as, where, in my estimation, that takes us back to the reconsideration, up to the reconsideration 6.7, of your current draft that shows, reordered paragraphs in red, the Boundary County Library is not a judicial body in red, and then in yellow is the groups or individuals. So the yellow paragraph would be the first paragraph. Are we all on kind of the same page there?
Yes.
Okay. So then. Okay, that is done. In your collection of papers that I passed out, we start with, the first one is from, I wrote NOAC on the top. This is Doug's collection of the citations that he sent me for, cases on library policy. Did folks get a chance to go through, I guess we'll have to do that at the next meeting, because that would be, if you could go through that. And then, on Wilson is basically her version of the reconsideration procedure that she sent to me. And then Hackett had a version of that. And then I have a pretty extensive version, and it's got the reconsideration policy as I imagine it in the policy document. It's got a letter that says, "Dear patron," that would go out to folks that are concerned about materials that are currently in the library. It has a Boundary County Library request for reconsideration materials form, which is basically a combination of the old and new form that's currently in there, and then it has the Library Bill of Rights. And these 4 items, I would imagine, would be the packet that if a person wants something reconsidered, they would have the policy as represented, they would get the letter from the library board, and then the reconsideration form, and then the Bill of Rights. And that would be the packet that I imagine, as Mary Esther described at the last meeting. Okay? So, how would be the best way to attack this?
As far as revising 6.7,
7.
Maybe we could each discuss our,
let's just go here point by point where people wanna make changes.
Okay. Okay.
Well, I think that we have to consider the end before we can consider a lot of the other steps in here of where it is going and the time frame. Because I agree with yours here, because you're sending it to the board of trustees, which a community group or something in between those, the librarian director and the board of trustees, I think would be unnecessary, because the board of trustees is supposed to represent the community anyway. So I agree with what you have here, that it needs to go to the board of trustees.
Well, and my thought about that, thinking about it, was, as a board, would we, if someone comes to a committee and says, I want this book out, or this movie, or this whatever it is, out of the library, and to me, I see it as an abdication of the responsibility of the board to be responsible for everything that's in the library, to send that to a second committee, and that creates another layer of bureaucracy.
Right, yeah, and who is gonna be on the committee, and then you have to go through all that again.
Right.
And the library board has already been elected to make those decisions.
Wait a second, on part three, the change that some of us want to make isn't that much different than what we have here, just we want to include an additional 2 community members. And it still goes to the board, pretty much the way we have it here.
Yeah, that's what you were saying, and I like the committee members, I can see some benefit with it. I can also agree that if the board is ultimately responsible, yet if it can be solved in a committee, then the board doesn't have to be bothered with it.
Having a couple more community members picked at random from volunteers, not in any particular ideological bent. The reason why I'm advocating for this is, to some extent, it gives the board a fig leaf, if you will, to say, yes, we solicited community involvement, we're just not making these decisions amongst the same small group of people, and I think it's a good way to avoid problems.
Yeah, I
Well,
think
and
it's a win.
I'll have mine out, I can make copies. I did include, under the 3 that had a material review committee, which is, which would include a professional library staff, a library board member, and a community member. You can get too many people on a review.
I don't think just adding 2 more community members is terribly cumbersome.
The reason why I have a problem with having a board member and a library staff is the library staff should have already been involved in the process with the book. So throwing them on a committee of 3 gets somebody in there that already has had a chance to review that book. It isn't a new person. And then throwing a board member onto the committee, I see also as a problem, because they're also gonna have the opportunity, if it's contested again, to look at it again. So it only adds 1 new person looking at the materials, giving their opinion. I think my view of how the committee works is it's just somebody chosen by the director beforehand. It's not disclosed who they are. They
So
give
you're
them
saying just community members?
just community members. That's chosen beforehand, so it's not chosen based on the book that's in question or the movie that's in question. It's somebody that she's already talked to or he's already talked to, and they have them available if there is a problem. They have them read the material. They individually turn in their report, so they're not even collaborating together. Since the director chooses them, it doesn't have to be an open meeting.
But they're providing input.
They're
not
providing-
making the bottom line.
Correct,
decision.
they're providing income, then the director reviews it, turns it over what the decision is to the patron that has made the complaint. If they're still not happy with what has just been decided, then they turn it over to the board, and the board has to take it from them. I see that it's a
Which is
huge.
kind of, I did indicate.
Yeah,
that as
it's
well.
just, yeah, and the only thing that's different is that it's 3 community members instead of adding a library
Wait,
person.
you're saying that the director should handpick these people rather than picking them at random?
I don't know how it would be picked at random, but
Well, it's easy
Well,
enough.
and
The
before we
mechanics of it would be very easy.
before we get too far, I would not, I do not know that it's absolutely legal for someone to be used in that fashion.
has
I
it
don't,
happened before? Because it was on the old policy when Sandy was here. Has she used it?
so we have really never had a contested book.
Okay. Cause
And
that's
so-
how it was written, except for that it was written how you have it.
Well, I
That's
know-
the old policy.
Well, and how it was handled in the school, and we've had principals that used community members, but it also included staff, because the staff were more knowledgeable about the procedures.
With the school,
You know.
though, the staff isn't necessarily, they could
But I'm
choose
just
a
saying
staff that
that's-
isn't involved
that's
so
where that
closely.
came from.
Yeah, okay.
That's where that came from.
Yeah.
My other thing too, and that I had made note, since we're kind of discussing this, is that I think it's important when someone does have a complaint, which, if we're truly following what some of was in there, I'm not sure why that we need to have this, but it's always good to have cover bases. So I think it's important for the person who is has a concern over a book, to, you know, discuss with the staff person, you know, the concern, where the item is shelved. Because it's my understanding that there are a lot of books that are complained about that aren't even contained in our library. So I think it's important that that book needs to actually exist in the library, that it's not, you know, just pulled off the internet that I'm not gonna like this book. That it has to be there. And I did find, I know Lee incorporated, I found one, a reconsideration, you know, just a little bit, kind of more concise. It's just one page.
Right,
Maybe it's not
right.
as intimidating. I mean, and I think the one you had too was revised, that it's shortened up a bit.
Well, and it
But-
was basically just a combination of the two that,
Is it similar to the one that you had given us? Okay,
Yeah, and this
okay.
one came, you know, I did some research across the country on, you know, just what, and I just happened to find this.
Yeah, that's what,
You know,
I just
that-
found one too, but I.
But it, you know, it's just simple.
okay.
You know, it's just simple, but it also asks the patron, you know, to support what the concern is, not just, I have a concern. Okay, why do you have a concern? You know, do you have some background to support, you know, your concern? Yeah, and I have, well, I had a couple others, but I don't know if this is the moment. Is this the moment?
Well, like I said, I think we have to determine who's gonna be doing the reviewing before we can make any other policies around that, because,
Right, right.
that's what everything revolves around. And in the way I see it, since we're trying to set a time limit as far as time-wise, once somebody puts in a reconsideration form, you know, to have three community members happen to check out a book to see what they're talking about, takes the book off the shelf,
Yeah.
basically.
I was thinking about that too, because.
I mean, so, and we say in the policy that we're not gonna take it off the shelf until after the review's been done. But basically, we are, if we're, happen to read the book, and we only have one copy of it. So,
No, and that's a valid point, but I also think if someone's going to complain about something, they need to have justification
I agree.
personal justification.
I agree,
Yeah, I
and,
agree.
yeah,
Because,
that's why I don't think that the form should be too simple, but like I said, I
Well,
think
no,
we
I
need to
mean,
decide
it's
who's
not-
gonna determine.
I mean, it's not simple, it's just one
Right,
page.
yeah, right.
And some people get intimidated if they see the second page. It's like, oh my gosh, you know, I have to flip it over, you know.
Is it really that tough?
Yeah, I think somebody,
Yeah.
if they're filling it out, I think they're pretty passionate about
Right,
it
yeah.
at that point.
So I guess I would take it off from that point of view, is that, if someone has taken the time to come to the library and say, I do not like this part, you know, this
This
edition,
material.
or this material in our public library, I think that, first of all, I think that in the end, the board will have to decide, because the board can't abdicate its, responsibility to be the representation that they are elected to be. They cannot do that. And I don't know that it's legal, and I would have to talk to the folks that do this kind of thing to see if it's legal to have an unnamed person.
Well, it does have it listed on the ALA, but that's really close to how Sandy had written it. But
But I would be really reluctant.
it's said to
as-
keep
as
their
a-
names, confidential, for sure.
I would be really reluctant to bring an unknown person to this particular issue, because it's
Mhm.
already an issue that people are interested in. And to me, the most important thing is to be upfront and honest about what you're doing.
Transparency. Since we're trying for transparency, we need to have
And
people in the open.
I would be really uncomfortable as a board member, first of all, assigning this responsibility for selecting someone to the director, and then having that person be an unnamed person. I think that would go against what our community would want.
We're trying to learn to work together.
Yeah.
Right,
I
and
would-
to me, the solution would be open discourse.
Yeah, I'd be inclined to go along with that too, I just wanna see a couple more people.
I would say
But
that
the
if we cut
community
out a committee
named
to make
openly
sure that
would
we
be
put in
fine.
here that the board would allow, public comment for
Well, I
it,
think
so
that-
Well,
that you
in
could have
in my
more.
process, the person
Proposition,
that
yeah.
registers the concern has the same 3 minutes to stand up in front of the board and explain what their concern is. And to me, that makes the board responsible, and that makes the person with the complaint responsible to stand in front and say what their issue is.
I agree with you totally.
And I'm really reluctant to have a second committee, for a couple of different reasons. And one is just managing the second committee, because having managed this committee, and this is a limited time thing, was cumbersome. And it was to get 3 community members to read a book and then come together and meet and discuss it in, it would have to be an open forum. To me, it would have to be an open forum just like this, so that people can make their input known.
And that's why I thrown in there just, because I think 7 days is unrealistic, I think.
I do too.
And having a specific date, like the 3rd Wednesday, blah, 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 this is, if there's any books up for review, that's the day it happens, kind of thing, where it's structured, where it's not, you're just not on call for every,
I could see putting in there, 7 days to submit it, put it on the agenda for the next regular board meeting.
Well, and
Something
that's
like that.
It
kind of
has
the
to give the
process.
board time to read it, cause if there's materials being presented, it has to be read in its entirety. It can't just be that one little section that is looked at because there's a lot of works out there, plays and books, that if you don't read it in its entirety, you don't get the meaning out of it. It could have a tiny little section that somebody might be offended by that gets rounded up in the end. So that's.
And that's where, some of the laws that come in, the obscenity laws and all, because obscenity is covered under the First Amendment, but depending on what level. And it also has to be looked at the entire, book, or, was this just taken out of context? You know what I'm saying? So it does, is there value beyond, maybe what happened on page 43?
Yeah, so time has to be given to the board members
So,
to be able to review it, and if there's only one copy,
well, we're a small community too, you can't put that big of a burden on, specific individuals.
Realistically, how often would this group of people really have to meet? How often are materials contested? As somebody said earlier, that it's never happened.
Well, and that's the reason, that's the reason we're working here, though, is that doesn't mean it will always never happen.
Right.
I know.
So there's a
I don't see this
contingency
as being a tremendous burden on the people. Yeah, this committee is described on part 3.
But I know that there are contested books right now waiting for this process to be defined.
yeah, I
And
know that too.
I know that out in the community, there are people that have books that they're looking to bring to this sort of resolution.
Okay, well, then let's share the burden and get a couple more community members on that. Basically, just with the same group you've already got, just with a little bit broader group of
But then you'd have
folks.
to get into terms, and how long are they gonna be on the board, this committee, and how that's gonna be formed, and who's in charge of that committee, and
Is there
stuff. Whereas
application
the board
process?
members already
Who's-
know the laws.
Who's?
So you have all
to
the
me,
same issues, whether it's 1 or 3 people.
Well, to me, the issue stops if it's the board, because the board is the people that are supposed to do this.
Nobody from the community then.
Well, the board is
Well,
saying
or
it's the
if they're
community.
elected.
I
Other
do
than-
agree with that the board hasn't voted in, so.
And it's doing, they're representing their section of the community.
I was
Yeah.
just concerned about the board having too much responsibility all at the same time.
Well,
Well,
especially in that
so-
7-day thing, that's
So,
not
to
realistic.
me, the 7-day thing is about, that gives the board time to go through the document,
That's
so.
why I said 30.
I don't think 7 days is enough to read. You might be able to read the
So
the
the 7
reconsideration, but you don't have enough
The
time to
7
read
days
The
it.
is
seven
time
days
to pass
is-
it on to the board.
is the
Not
time
to-
between when the library gets it
Oh, okay.
and
Yeah.
it gets forwarded to the board. And-
or committee, whatever we decide.
Right. And so then that gives the time for the people on the board to prepare for the next meeting. You know, and so my assumption is there's a group of people that have books that they want the board to look at and be held responsible for.
Correct.
And,
And they're the ultimate responsible party.
right, and so when people, get, so the next election is in May. So when people are sitting in the voting booth in May, they're gonna say, okay, Lee Colson looked at these books and this is what he said about him, and I'm voting yes or no. Or Aaron Boacek looked at these books and this is what he said about him, and I'm voting yes or no. And that is the opportunity for the community input, right there. And I would like to keep that there, because to me, that gives the people responsible the most information, and it gives the people in the community a direct line to the people that are responsible.
So,
That's a good argument.
No, I like that, I like that.
well, and also
And
the
it
board
is-
members know the issues.
Well,
And they know the policy.
we know the issue and the policy, but we don't know these words. And, in my vision of it, we do up to 3 a meeting, if that's possible, because you figure that's 15 minutes of people talking.
Oh, 5 per person, okay.
Yep, and then, so, and in each calendar year, an individual patron gets 5 opportunities to contest specific
Right.
one, so it has to be a change of, title and, so you can't contest all of Ernest
Yeah.
Hemingway's
Right.
books at once.
Right,
You have to
yeah.
do Ernest Hemingway, Islands in the Stream.
Right.
No, that's
I
very
agree.
good, I like that.
Right,
I like
and so
that.
to me, that brings the responsibility to the person who is ultimately supposed to make that decision.
So, are we kind of going then towards taking part 3 here, not as written right now, but getting rid of the material review committee completely and sending everything directly to the board?
That would be my recommendation.
Well, and I think that's a valid point, that these are community representatives. And it's up there in-house, they know the information, and it does make it cleaner.
Yeah, I'm definitely for a committee, but I can see the problem behind it, because I hadn't been able to figure it out in my mind how it would work. I know that this policy can be changed again.
Well, you know,
I-
let's just have a try.
Yeah, you guys make some very valid points, and I agree with what it does. The responsibility ultimately ends. I was trying to think of a way to make it so that it could hopefully get stopped, first of all, with the director, so that hopefully they could de-escalate the situation right off the bat and try to point them in a different direction, and then just taking steps to stop it. Yet, I think we should have a vote and just move on.
Vote
At
on
this point.
where it's gonna go to.
Vote,
Because I
vote
think we
whether or
decide
not we're
anything
gonna
else
have a
until we
committee
decide
put into the policy, so I call for a motion to vote if we're going to add a committee to this policy or take it away.
So yes would be keeping the committee
No.
in some
And
form.
no would
Well, it
be-
depends on how the motion's phrased.
Well, you
I'm-
seem to be the motion
Yeah,
person,
I
how are you phrasing
motion
it?
to vote whether we're going to have a committee put in the policy.
Okay, what
So
you're
that we
doing
can
is,
move on.
no, you're not making a motion, you're making a call to vote.
A call to
And there
vote.
isn't a motion on the floor to vote. So I make a motion
Okay.
that we have the policy go straight to the library board, and that it is within 7 days, it will be forwarded to the board and put on the agenda of the title in question.
I second that. Well said.
I just wanted
Okay,
to.
so,
Discussed it.
So are we gonna vote?
Is there
Yeah,
a
we
second?
Here-
There has to be a second.
She
I
said-
did.
Oh, you did.
hang on a second, let me catch up. So Wells, vote to forward,
The reconsideration form to.
reconsideration to board, okay.
As
Within
written.
7 days.
Yeah, with the 7 days.
As I wrote
As
it,
you wrote it,
basically in the
yeah, as you
the
wrote it,
paragraph under my name,
Right.
yes, as you wrote it,
and then Anderson seconded.
yes.
Okay, so Doug, did you hear that?
You know, I did, you know, I think for something, for something like this, I am gonna need probably like a day or two to kind of marinate and see what the best solution is for my thought process. I hear both sides, I think everybody makes good points, but it's just something where I need a little more time to, see kind of what my left and right limits are, you know?
But we have to vote on it.
We do.
Yeah, but I really don't have a choice as to whether or not, I guess you could vote present. If you're not a yea or nay, you could vote a present. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, let's do present for now. You know, it's something that, yeah, I just need a little more, like I said, I get where both sides are coming from. I just need a little more time to really think about that.
Well, and I apologize, a fair amount of this falls to me because I did not get you the information that everyone else is looking at. Cause you're basically hearing this for the first time and you don't have a hard copy in your hand, which is not my ideal. So,
And yeah, I, whatever you passed out, I don't have, but I do have my notes and I do have, copies of the draft with like I'm on 6.7 on my laptop now and the other copies, so.
so would it help you if I read what the folks are looking at as far as my recommendation for the process? Would that be helpful?
You know, I probably would still need that little bit more time. If we
Okay.
could just go with present.
Okay.
Cause you know, this is, you know, the library is an extension and organ of the body, and, you know, I just wanna make sure I'm getting this right on my side, so, yeah, a little
Okay.
more time would be effective.
Okay, and. Alright, so the motion has been made and seconded that, we forward the reconsideration form to the board as written by me.
Yes.
Okay, no,
Let me read it.
no, gotcha.
Yeah, can you read it out loud just to make sure how you
Yeah.
wrote it? I mean, you're
Okay.
right.
Cause I thought we were first just voting on whether we were putting in the committee or not
Okay.
approving the
Right, yeah,
whole thing.
basically that's what we need to.
Okay,
It's
so,
going-
Cause I could
Wait.
still hash out a few things of what
Yeah.
you said, but I was just specifically,
so
Okay.
we vote to forward reconsideration to the board, without the committee.
that's what I was wondering.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what.
So
Well,
let's-
that's not how the
That's what
motion
I
is,
thought we were
though.
voting
But yeah,
for too.
what was your
The
motion?
motion is that the Boundary County Library Director or staff will forward the Boundary County Library material reconsideration packet completed in hard copy form to the Boundary County Free Library Board of Trustees within 7 days of receipt.
So number 2,
Number 2.
we're voting to keep, whether we're keeping number 2.
Like I said, we have to start with the end in mind to know
Okay.
where we're going. So
Copy
we
that.
can discuss the rest of it. Okay, so that's what we're voting on.
So, I guess would mean that we are voting to follow number 2.
Correct.
Okay, that would be an easier way for me to,
Write it down.
yes, okay? So, follow number 2,
No.
no. Follow number 2,
Yes.
Mary Esther,
Yes.
Yes.
okay. And at this point, I am still agreeing with myself.
That is very good.
Do you have a vote?
So we have 4 yeses, a no, and a present. And I will get this to you, Doug, as soon as I get home, which is probably gonna be later this afternoon.
No problem,
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Alright, so,
Now we
And-
can discuss the rest of it now that we know where it's going.
So then, shall we just go to, item number 3 on that list? Do we wanna do it that way and just go about?
Let's
You guys voted to get rid of number 3.
No.
So number 3 off the, if you
Off the
look at.
Colson.
We're looking at
Colson.
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 Yeah.
Colson on the
Not
list.
Not anybody else.
Yeah, or the other. I say let's start at the top.
Let's start at the top. Okay, so the first paragraph is basically the same as is currently in the draft.
Yeah, so
Go
no, go
I was
ahead.
gonna say, I added a word. So where it says staff is available to discuss concerns and identify alternate materials that may be available. I changed it to staff is available to discuss concerns where the item is shelved and identify alternate materials that may be available.
Because you wanna make sure it's
In our
in
library.
the library.
Oh,
I mean, if
okay.
you're gonna complain about something that's in our library, I think it needs to be in the library. Or maybe it's been checked out, but I mean, it's, you know, it's
in the
part of
file,
our
okay.
library.
So this reconsideration process only activates if it is in our library.
That's what I was gonna
Right.
bring up.
Yeah.
It is
That's-
all, I think it's already contingent on that.
And I think
For-
it needs to be set. I think it needs something that says it's in our library. I mean, you know, that's either available, I mean, somebody's checked it out, but that book actually existed in our library, or movie, or whatever.
So maybe at the end of that, staff is available to discuss concerns and identify alternate materials that, instead of may be available, maybe we can put
Are available.
are available in our library. Because if somebody tries to use this to support, to bring up a book that isn't available, they can say, well, that's not in our library. Here's an alternate that is in our library that will support what you're looking for. Does that solve it, do you think?
Well, and then, to me, the may be available part, goes to the interlibrary loan system.
Okay.
So, even if it's,
Oh,
if a patron comes up and requests a specific item that we do not have, it may be available through the interlibrary loan system.
But that book will not be on the shelf. I mean, if it comes in through interlibrary loan, it's behind the desk
That's
for a
a
patron to pick up.
individual.
It's not on, I think, at least that's been
How
my
is it even
understanding
a
is.
part of this process?
Yeah, I think that if somebody turns in this pack and it's something that is not even available in our library, and it came to the board, I think it's just gonna be put aside and be like, this isn't even in our library, and then maybe.
But maybe this is heading that off. You know, why go through all this process and go, well, it wasn't there anyway? Because,
Well, I
That
think
can
the
be-
conversation with the staff is going to be,
Mhm.
so a
And
person
that
comes
stops
in
it.
and they say, I don't like book X, and the staff says, well, let me look that up for you, and they look it up and they say, book X is not in our library.
And they're also going to get, a packet that has this policy that we're working on that will hopefully ease their mind that it won't be brought into the library if it's protected and covered in the policy.
or if someone orders it in our library, it's not going to be on the shelf. And again, parents can still sign, you know, that form that says, my child can't check out, you know, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
But I just think it needs to be somewhere, you know, I'm truly not as concerned about the verbiage as somewhere it needs, that needs to be a check. That the book or materials need to be in our library. Whether it's checked out today, but then it would be available another day. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
I'm trying to think of how to put it.
And this, where the item was shelved, I mean, I gleaned that off of another state's verbiage.
Yes, we don't wanna go through every book that's available through the interlibrary system.
Well, and I don't think that that would come up under this particular item, because it's not, to get an interlibrary loan book, you have to go specifically request it, and there's, I forget, I think you get 3 a calendar year, there's a limited number that you get, and, it's a process, and usually the request goes out to a different library, and then you have to wait for it to come in, and then they, you
And
know.
it's, I can't see it would be as big of a concern, if it's a book that is breaking the law that's on the interlibrary loan, they're gonna have to take it to a higher thing than just a board.
Well, and if, that gets solved way before us.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, that's,
it's
if
not
it's
sitting
a
on the
contested
shelf.
book, legally, you know, it's meeting some of these qualifications that, make it a contested book, then it's not even coming to us through the library loan system.
Exactly.
What if we put, materials in the library that do not support their opinions? Put in the library right after materials. In the Boundary County Library. See what I'm
Materials,
Oh, after, where it says,
Yeah, may
So
find
groups
Boundary
or
County
individuals?
Library, may find materials in the Boundary County Library. So just kind of swap those two
okay.
yeah, so, cause that does say it's in the library.
in the Boundary County Library. Yeah, just put materials in front of that. It takes my brain. In the Boundary County Library, that do not support their opinions, beliefs, or views. I didn't read the first part of that sentence because my thing comes with that.
So the sentence would read, groups or individuals may find materials in the Boundary County Library that do not support their opinions, beliefs, or views, period.
Yes, does that help? with what
Does
you're-
it,
okay,
does that,
okay.
okay,
I think that
okay.
makes sense.
And then staff is available to discuss concerns and identify alternate materials that may be available. And then if a concern is not satisfied through discussion with staff, the staff will describe and provide the materials review process, which is below.
Mhm.
Okay?
So are you looking on yours?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay, okay.
I'm looking at yours.
Yeah.
Seeing if there's anything that's in there. Okay. Yeah, I wanted to go back, keeping with that paragraph, groups or individuals. I'm wondering if there's a better way that we can state that.
Patrons?
Yeah,
a lot of-
I was looking at that, maybe just residents or,
Community members?
Yeah.
Can we just call them
Community
patrons,
members, yeah.
because they're
Patrons
consistently
and-
patrons
Yeah,
throughout.
that's
the
what I
process.
was thinking, trying to figure out what would be the best thing, so patrons, I think most community members are patrons, I just don't like groups or individuals, it just.
Patrons kinda sums it up.
Cause
Clean.
that's what we've called them consistently throughout.
Fine, fine.
maybe county residents.
Well, patron sort of implies that you're using the library.
Yeah.
Right, and so county residents actually can't use the library as such unless they sign up. So you have to be a patron to go into the library to use it. So to me, that's a
To
much
check out.
clearer definition
Yeah.
of who we're talking to.
Can people be a patron that don't live in the county?
I believe they can.
That's what I was
Well,
thinking too,
You can use
but
Sandpoint Library.
Right.
Yeah, I
After,
can go.
after a certain amount of time.
So-
I can go down it, like, if it's the same way it used to be, if you sign up for a Boundary County card, you automatically get access to the Bonner County.
After 3 months.
After 3 months, okay, it's been a while, so I don't.
Yeah.
So you're a while ago.
No, I have a card, I'm old enough, I have a physical card, and they don't do that anymore.
Are you? You're old. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. I have a physical card to be able to do it, but I don't think they give out physical cards anymore. But I'm okay with, patrons, cause I think people who are using it are gonna be the ones that are turning in
Right, they
a
have
review.
to take a book out, they have to be a member. Okay,
So patron.
so
Yeah.
are you copying us, Doug?
Yeah, no, I'm
Okay, okay. So then, the next sentence, Boundary County Library materials reconsideration packets are available at the circulation desk. And that's not currently true, but,
But it
if we
could be.
accept as
Right,
is,
yeah.
then
Yeah.
that would be the next. And then, number one is patron fills out and signs the Boundary County Materials Boundary County Library Material Reconsideration Packet and gives it in hard copy to the Boundary County Library, and it describes the packet contents. The Boundary County Library Material Selection Policy, which is the thing we're working on, the ALA Bill of Rights, the Materials Reconsideration Form, and the Patron Reconsideration Letter. And the Patron Reconsideration Letter and Materials Reconsideration Form.
I have a comment before we do that one though. I think that we need to put at the top there that the book will not be taken off the shelf, instead of waiting until the bottom, that the copy will be left until the whole process is complete. I mean, it's
Oh,
at the
just
bottom.
incorporate that
Yeah,
in part
put
of
that
the
at
one.
the top, so that they know that it's not gonna be taken off the shelf when it's being reconsidered.
So have that with the Boundary County Library, packets available, and then
Right.
have that sentence, the copy
Yeah,
or
the
copies of
copies of
the
the challenge material remain available to the public until disposition. is
That would
determined.
clean that up.
So would that be one A for the packet and
Well,
one
it'd just
B
be
for the?
right behind the Boundary County when you
So take
give out the
that
reconsideration form.
before this started.
So now now I don't think it should be removed, but what about taking it out to read? I just don't want it to run into.
Well, remove from the availability.
Okay, I see, yeah, that's how I read
Challenge
it
will
too.
remain available to the public until disposition is determined.
Okay,
But put it at the top so that people know that just because they put in a form, that it's not gonna be taken off the
it's not,
shelf.
yeah, it's not gonna be removed.
And that would be at the end of sentence one, on paragraph one. Is that
So
what
it
you
would
want?
read, Boundary County Library material reconsideration packets are available
Okay.
in circulation.
The very
Thus,
top, before
the copy or copies of the challenge materials will
Before the
remain
disposition.
available to the public until disposition is determined.
Okay,
And then go into the procedure.
Right, and then go into the procedure,
okay,
just so that it's
procedure,
clear that
this
it's.
procedure will be
Yeah.
followed. Okay, patron fills out, we do the packet. Do we wanna go through the letter and the form? Is that something we?
Yes, we need to, I think, I mean,
So the patron, and again, these are things that I just came up with and all the limits and numbers and statements here are just out of my head, so.
Yeah,
I
I just pulled it off of.
it looks good, I mean, you know.
So we appreciate your concern over specific materials in our library. Selecting materials that serve the needs of our community is a vital part of operating a library. The Board of Trustees takes this responsibility very seriously and has established a material selection and collection development policy for selecting resources, as well as a detailed reconsideration procedure for requesting reconsideration of items in our collection. We, the Board of Trustees, have enclosed both documents as well as the American Library Association Bill of Rights, most current version for your review. Please feel free to contact the board if you would like to discuss them further. If you are still concerned after you review the library policies, please complete the Boundary County Library Materials Reconsideration Packet and return it to the library. You may be assured of prompt attention to your request. The steps that will be taken are outlined in the reconsideration of Boundary County Library Materials. At any point during this process, please feel free to contact the board with questions or concerns.
So, is this what you have written, or is that available now? I mean,
This is what I have written.
It's
Okay,
not available.
It's
now.
not available now.
The only thing that I would say is, we, the Board of Trustees, have enclosed both documents. I don't think you need to include the American Library Association Bill of Rights, because that is an appendix
In the
for
packet.
the packet, so I don't think it needs to be listed.
But I don't, in my picture of this, I don't know, I mean, we can do it that way, that we can,
I
cause
just,
it will be
the reason why I
part.
say that is because I know some people, when they read the American Library Association, they instantly put a wall up. And so throwing it in this letter that is appreciating them when they're already at this heightened state of objecting something, I just don't think we need to throw in something that may be like a red flag to them. Because the American Library Association has done some things that have put a red flag for a lot of people.
But you don't think they need to know that?
Well, it's gonna be handed to them in
In the
this
packet.
packet.
It'll
I don't
be-
think it needs to be on here as a separate listed it almost makes the American Library Association Bill of Rights as a equal to our policy, when I see it as an appendix, not an equal.
And if they
Does
get
that
this
make
letter,
sense?
they're gonna get the American Library
Correct.
rules already, I mean,
So
right.
that's the only, otherwise I
Yeah,
love this,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
the only section that I don't think we need to throw in there.
Okay. I'm,
If I'm
So
making
is
it
that
clear.
what we're gonna do?
But it will be in the
Reclose.
policy.
Correct,
It
it's
will
all,
be in the
it's an
form,
appendix.
yeah, it'll be in the,
Okay,
yeah.
as long as they're,
Where it is already.
Yeah, it's already in there, so.
As long
I
as
think
they're-
it's, just a second here, it's worth noting that that library bill of rights is quite old and predates, you know, all the radical stuff that's going on in that organization right now.
you know, do we know what year or when it
we
was
do,
developed?
we
Uh,
know that
37.
No,
it
it's developed
originated
on my
in
birthday,
19.
June 25th, 1953.
No,
Well,
no,
it
no, no.
started in
Is it older than
nineteen
that?
thirty-eight.
38?
I think
Oh,
38 was
no.
the first version I could
So
find.
fine, if you
And this
get
one-
rid of it here and keep it in the appendix as is, then
Yeah.
you're covered.
I like the
Well,
library bill of
This
rights, I
one
don't
that
like
you
your
just handed out
interpretation
says
right now.
2019,
Right.
January 29th, 2019.
But it's as accepted, it was modified, the last modification was in 1990s.
Yeah,
96.
Yeah, is the last modification. So it's,
But
so
it didn't change
when we
much.
get
I
done
wouldn't
with
want
this
it to-
policy, in theory, every year, the board looks at the policy and says, we accept this policy as is. So it will be policy modified as of 2023, assuming we get it done this year. But it will still say accepted 2024. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, let me make sure I'm getting this right. We are taking out the ALA Bill of Rights from the packet? Because
the
it was
letter.
already included.
Not
Just,
packet,
just,
the
No, just the
letter.
letter,
just
just the mention
listing
of it in
it,
the
Oh,
yeah,
letter.
just
sorry,
mentioning
sorry.
it, no,
Yeah, just in the letter.
it's still gonna be handed out.
Okay.
Yeah, so just
Okay.
mentioned in that letter.
Yeah, and going back to your thing, we don't need to list it, because just saying, boundary packet contents, Boundary County Library Materials Selection Policy already includes the ALA Bill of Rights, we don't have to list that separate.
Okay. Okay, so the sentence would read, we, the Board of Trustees, have enclosed, both documents for your review, and both documents refer back to the material selection collection policy and, wait a minute,
The material consideration form,
the material reconsideration form.
and
Does
they're
the-
reading the letter.
Okay, okay.
Does this letter even have to say that? It's including the documents, because they're getting all the documents in the packet.
Well, to me, the idea is, okay, so I don't like this material, I entered mine, I wanna reconsider, I wanna make sure that I have all the information that I need to submit a request correctly. So to me, I wanna make sure that when the patron leaves the library, they have, and know they have, all the material they need to successfully navigate this process.
And I think that's very similar to a business letter,
Yeah.
where you say enclosed, you know, because then you can be certain that you have what you're supposed to
Right.
have.
And I don't want them to wonder, you know, do I have everything I need to make this correct? Okay?
Okay.
Alright, so except for that, this looks acceptable.
Yes.
Okay, do you have comments, Doug?
No, no, I'm just, taking everything in and, going down the line on it, so.
Okay.
We're good to go, and I can hear clearly still, so.
Alright. Alright, so then there's the form.
Well, we aren't done with this.
Do we wanna look at the form, or do we wanna keep going on that?
Well, I think he's just going to the form, just because it's part of what's in the
Oh,
packet.
in the packet, okay.
Okay, so there's a couple of different versions of this form out there. There's the old version, that the library had, and there's the new version that's currently active in the policy. And there's the one that, Laura brought today. which is basically, is that out of,
Did you
I,
find
I
out the one
did,
that
I
you
did,
brought?
I was selfish.
oh,
Oh,
sorry. So I'm the only one that can
League is
see over her
privilege.
shoulder and see that.
Is it much different than this one, or yours
It's
is
just
just
a one
a one
pager.
It's a
page?
one pager, it's a one pager.
I like one pagers.
You know, immediately on this one, I go right to what percentage of that, we have to do math on this.
Well, and being a teacher, how many times do people miss turning over the page and
Oh.
not doing it?
Or in a doctor's office, it's always.
I know, I do that.
happiness.
Well,
But anyway.
without even looking at it, I already like the one pager, because if somebody wants to say more, they can always add
They can
stuff
attach,
to it, attach
they
their,
can attach.
but a one page is just easy to make sure everything gets filled out that the board might want to have included, and then they just get extra. I don't even have to look at it, I think that's, if it
Okay.
has a lot of the same stuff in it.
It has the same things, it asks for the same justification.
Cause the only, yeah, the only
It just
thing is,
concises,
yeah,
you know, and I think,
So what I will do is I will steal your version,
please,
and we will go, if we want to do one pager, that's fine. The one thing I would like to add that I don't see on your one pager is a place for this library staff to initial and date, because part of this
it
process,
receives it.
yeah,
oh, so it, like a stamper, so that
Some-
could even
something.
just go right
okay.
up in that corner.
Oh, is he still there? Or is he getting, somebody
somebody's
getting a call?
oh.
It's,
I know, it's scary.
it sounds like he's getting a call.
It
Or
does,
somebody's
it sounds
calling,
like,
somebody else is calling.
it sounds like
Yeah,
somebody's calling
I
your
agree
phone.
with that, the whoever accepts it, cause that's the one thing I thought, when you say turn into staff, I was thinking maybe they need to turn it into the library director versus just a staff member, so that it's handled correctly and doesn't get lost in
Well,
fumbling.
and just to add one more piece of paper somewhere, or maybe it can even be a computer, that when the librarian says, okay, I've received this, that it's documented in a log.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Cause
just
we
a
used to have
log
to do that
book.
with scholarships,
Yeah.
because things happen.
yeah, and it's a pretty serious paper getting turned in.
So just maybe up in the corner and then somehow a log. At the circulation desk, when somebody picks up a packet, then it can be logged that this person picked up a packet.
Is what action on that one page, what action they want?
What?
So, author, title, publisher, internet address call, type of material, request initiated by, name, mailing address, phone. This complaint represents an individual or an organization. Please answer the following questions about the material. Did you review, listen to the entirety? If not, what parts? What do you believe is the theme or intent of this item or site? To what in this item do you object? Please be specific, cite pages, scenes, etc. What harmful effect do you feel was the result of reading, viewing, listening to this item or site? Do you believe this item or site serves any of the following purposes? Circle yes. So promotes understanding of other cultures or lifestyles, promotes discussion of societal issues, provides information about a subject unavailable from another source. In its place, what other source would you recommend that would convey valuable information or perspective on this subject? And then signature, turn into staff person or mail to, and then date. So it's pretty, it's very similar to what I have, I just put more spaces
Yeah,
for
yeah, that's what I
writing.
was wondering.
And as was said, and I think people know that, if you have more to say, just have more to say.
Okay,
But this starts the process.
okay, so I will, at this point, we're accepting this,
I think it's good to have a work session.
okay. How's it going, Doug?
Good. Can you hear me?
I can hear you,
There's
you're a
some
little
feedback.
staticky though, but.
Maybe move the speaker away from.
Okay. Did that just start?
Yeah.
Yes.
Let me see if it's,
Cause it's totally gone now, there is no static now.
What it is when you have it close to an electronic that's emitting
Okay.
sound, it messes
That's
with
what
the
I heard.
frequencies.
Oh,
Yeah,
so it's probably the recorder then?
it's possible.
No, it's the phone and the speaker, they're mixing with each other, the frequencies.
Yeah, that'll probably.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay,
we'll try that for a while.
okay.
Done.
We moved you to the other side of the desk. Alright,
okay, great.
so then,
I was just gonna say, can you write a note, since you're a board member, to put, if this gets passed, to make sure to add it to the employee handbook or employee, a policy of how they deal with it coming in.
Well, they have
Since we
to-
had said that it was like you had brought up the log, so something will need to be addressed to employees so they know how to handle
Yeah,
these
that's,
turning in. That won't be a part of this
Right.
policy,
No,
so.
but it's just, I mean, it's just a
Simple way.
CYA.
policy actions?
Yeah, just so it
You know
gets
what I-
added,
yeah.
because we're not
Because
gonna be dealing
all
with that.
staff members aren't gonna know how to handle the form coming out.
Correct,
Yeah.
and so if it's just.
But if
getting-
they're handing one out, logged it on this date, somebody picked it up, and then it could be on that same log,
Right,
they returned it.
yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna take the time to do this.
And then
I
when it
wanna
was
check
forwarded
our-
to the board, yeah.
Yeah,
Just
make
get
sure
it
they know
across
what to
there.
do with what is being
Well, and
done.
it's just,
Yeah.
it's gonna protect them as well. Oh, and talking, well, writing that, so I just put at the top, cause I did find this at the top of my, about, patron behavior policy, and I thought that was really interesting that this was actually a part of policy in one of my states I explored.
Huh.
And I thought,
That's exactly how they wrote it.
that's exactly how they wrote it.
Nice.
And I thought that was kind of lovely, since we took out that other part, about this
Where
one,
themselves everything is.
it just, as a reminder,
But that's to the patrons, not necessarily to the policies.
yeah, and 'cause I never
Yeah.
saw anything about behavior in there.
Right, yeah.
But anyway, that's why that was on there, because I thought it would be, it was just a nice,
I like that one inviting.
well,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yes. There we
Did
go.
you do that?
I did, it's at the top of my.
This says Anderson.
Oh, that has
Oh,
Anderson at
does?
the top of it.
Okay, I have that.
You have that, so I just threw that on there, and I'll just read it. It says patron behavior policy, that all individuals are going to, oh, I said going, it's going, typing, oh my
Oh,
goodness.
gone.
I didn't.
I didn't read.
Anyway, not all individuals are going to agree with what is and what is not appropriate for themselves and their families. It is hopeful that the library is seen as a warm, inviting, and secure place to be. To ensure that all library users are able to utilize the library without unnecessary distractions, each patron must behave in a manner that respects the right of all users. I just thought that was lovely.
So what's the point, or you wanna include this?
There wasn't anything in policy about behavior, and I think that wasn't, I heard that that was kind of an issue, and so I didn't know if we needed to include something like that. I don't know how you govern it,
Yeah.
so maybe that's just,
Well, now
thank
that
you for
you
listening
feel
to
better,
it.
can we move on?
Sometimes we have made things up.
Yeah.
Or
People inside the library need to comply with the law just like they do everywhere else in town.
Alright,
Number 3?
number 3. Okay, at the next regularly scheduled board meeting, the trustees will consider each material reconsideration form as a separate item by creator and title, in order of receipt of completed hard copy materials by the library. And the board is able to limit reconsiderations to meet other library needs. No more than 3 reconsiderations requests will be considered per meeting.
I think that's good, but I would like to put in that it can only be reconsidered like once every year, or once that particular book or subject can only be reconsidered.
Where did we read that? Was that in
We
the
talked
old
about
That's
policy?
important.
No,
Oh,
it isn't.
Or did we just talk about that before?
No, I mean, once an item is reviewed, that we put a time limit to when it can be reviewed again, or if.
oh, the specific item.
Right, yeah, that
That's the
specific
item.
item, if it can be reviewed, and, I mean, we go through the library books every 5 years, so maybe that's a time limit that it can be reviewed again in 5 years if the societal influences change.
So, looking at it from a patron's point of view, somebody comes in and doesn't like a specific book, and it goes through this process. And another patron comes in and doesn't like this specific book. I kinda think we have to let them say that.
But when does it come to that the board's determination is final?
Forever.
Well, not.
But see, it can't be forever.
It can't be
We can't
forever, cause
say
there's new
forever.
board members that come on
Right, yeah.
and go, but at the same time, when does it, maybe isn't a new board member come in every 2 years? So maybe it can be reconsidered once a new board member is sitting on the board?
So what if somebody brings a book to our attention and we pass it one time and we say, you know, we agree this book needs to be out of our system. And then there's enough requests from other patrons to bring the book back. And, you know, it just seems like it's not smooth, it's not easy, it's not comfortable, but I think as somebody that, as a public entity, we need to reflect our public concerns. And so that means that if 15 patrons wanna revisit the same book, I think we have to revisit it. I don't wanna limit a person's right to not like something.
So you're saying that if they put in a reconsideration form and another person comes in the next week and puts in on the same book, that you'll have to reconsider it
You'll look at
I
it
am.
again.
the next week,
I am.
or the next meeting?
And so each time we do it, and I'm not speaking for people I don't know, but if I was to do it, it would happen faster and faster each time.
Yeah.
Because I've already reviewed the material. And what I have to do as a board member is listen to my constituents say why they don't like that book, and decide again, am I in agreement with that, or am I not? And I know this is the part of government kinda drives me crazy, but we have to be, efficiency is not the goal of government, right is. As close to right as people can get.
And it can go both ways.
And it can go both ways.
Yeah, I agree with you with that.
And it's really frustrating, and I understand exactly what you're saying, but I don't know that that's our goal.
But how much time do you wanna spend on one book?
So what I've done in my process is a person they have their 5 reconsideration per calendar year. And again, these are just random numbers I grabbed,
Right.
the 3 minutes and 5 reconsiderations and all
All
those.
it is you've got a cap to it. It's not gonna
We got a
go
cap.
forever.
Yeah,
But I think we have to cap the patron, not
not the book.
not the book. Because if people have concerns about a book, it's our job as the board to answer those concerns.
What about the 3 reconsideration requests per meeting? Is that gonna overwhelm those meetings?
Well, and again, I put a wiggle word in there is that,
No more than?
the board is able to limit reconsiderations to meet other library needs.
Oh, okay, okay.
So if we have an hour's worth of budget to get through, and that's all the time we have, then we have to do the budget, or we
Yeah.
have to do.
You'll bump the reconsideration.
So it will be
request.
no more than 3, but then, at the next available meeting, it will come up again until we've worked
I
through
didn't notice
each
that, I
book.
like that, I thought 3 was a lot for some meetings.
Well, and so to me, 3 is basically 15 minutes. you know, the
Because
person
there is
gets
a
up and
time
talk,
limit.
they have the 3 minutes to describe why they don't like the book.
So now is it only the person that is, turning in the request, or are you gonna open it up for more people? That's where I had thought that if we're gonna cut out the committee, I think that we should open it up, that there could be more people that discuss this book. Or are you thinking
But
just
shouldn't that
one?
person be,
But see, each
Knowledge
person
is
is
there,
gonna
yeah.
maybe dislike the book for a different reason. So I would like the patron that made the process to be the patron that speaks to the book. And then if another patron wants to bring the book
Then
again,
they can fill out their own.
then they can do their own.
Okay.
because then you could, that could work both ways too, because the patron might not want it out, and a patron is there to say, leave it in.
Well, and that's
You
what,
know.
that was my thinking, is it's basically the book is on trial. So it gives a few people to speak, but then again, it goes with cutting into the meeting, but
Right.
that's,
And again, this is just a process I came up with that made
Yeah,
sense
yeah.
to me. And I'm
And
really,
it, you won't know if it's going to work if you
until
don't
we
try it.
Until we
I-
do
it. Try
I
it.
definitely agree
and
with that.
honestly, I
Yeah.
think the community feels the need to say things about books, and we need to let them.
Yeah, yeah, that's why I'm wondering about opening it up to more people speaking than just the one.
But I think until we cross that road, not
We'll see.
gonna know.
I guess the meetings aren't so closed off that they can, but,
Well, and if three different people dislike a book for the same reason, they still get
yeah.
that one book, and they turn it all in at the same time.
And
on one basis.
it'll be on the agenda, so.
It'll be on the agenda.
Okay.
And there's that same
Yeah,
time
yeah,
limit.
yeah, okay.
I'm detecting no substantive disagreement here.
Yeah, no, I'm not disagreeing.
So we can accept it.
I would say.
Yeah.
Are you gonna make a motion?
Sure. I move we accept it.
I'll second it. Well written.
Yeah.
Well stolen. Why, right? You can see.
Why read into the wheel?
Sweet, did we get this hashed out?
No, we haven't done 4 yet. Or did we?
Oh, we did
that was
four,
on
because that's a
too? Okay.
time.
Time limit,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, so we did,
So
we did it.
Do we
Okay.
wanna vote to accept it then, this,
Yeah, because there's a motion on the
Yeah.
floor.
This is a reconsideration
and we
policy.
seconded it, you seconded
I
it.
did.
So,
Aye.
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 I, okay. So, I'm looking at the clock, and we are at 30 minutes. Let me go look at my list of names here. So we have 3 names on the list. And again, I would remind folks that, first of all, this is a listen for us and the rest of the folks that are in the room, in the audience. It's a listen, and a person gets 3 respectful minutes to get their point of view out, and then we move to the next person.
Okay.
Are we in agreement? Are we good? Okay, so I have 3 names on the list. And I will, okay. I will start. Are we good? Actually, I have to wait. Can you run time for me?
I could run time.
So we give 3 minutes, and we're just gonna go in order of, the names on the list. So I have a Mark Mosley.
Thank you, members of the board. It's a
We're not board, we're committee.
committee. Thank you for the correction. Been a long time coming to start consideration of changing policy. I've heard some language from the board that suggests that, all of this work and effort may or may not be accepted by the board. I'm hoping that this is just not some new dog and pony show and waste of people's time, because it is the right direction to move. Looking over the policy and all the red lines and moving and everything, I've noticed some outstanding issues. Now, this is based on my own expertise. I'm actually an expert in documentation. I've written hundreds of policies and procedures and proposals and charters, you name it, for both enterprise and government, okay? There's still way too much subjective and political language that's been glossed over in the policy, that should be redlined. No policy should contain subjective language, period, ever. Empower, entertain, and educate people as individuals. Enduring and time limited. Diverse community, reflect the interests and needs of our diverse community. Here's a sentence: the Boundary County Library acts to fulfill its mission by selecting, acquiring, organizing, preserving, maintaining, and providing access to a collection of materials and electronic resources, stop, is what it should be. But it goes on to say, that reflect the interests and needs of our diverse community. This is obviously written somebody that does not understand how policies are supposed to be written. There's language like that all over the place that hasn't been dealt with. It's just been moved in some spaces. There is something else that I wanted to mention, but I wrote too many notes down now, I can't find my own stuff. Thank you for your work so far. The community supports your work. Thank you.
Next.
Mary Ellen.
Oh, I didn't hear that, sorry.
Hello, my name is Mary Ollie. I'm a member of this county, and I appreciate all of the work that this committee has done. I've been watching and sort of sifting through things, and I decided it's time to say something for the record.
Can you hold on just a sec? Doug, can you hear her?
I can, yes.
Okay.
We're good to go.
I just wanna make sure that you can hear
Okay,
her.
you got a call. So I haven't rehearsed, and I hope I stand under the 3 minutes. I wanted to come and talk mainly about the idea of fairness. So I want to start with that word, fair. What is fair? And then I want to talk about 3 things. One is the process that we're going through. The other is the product, and I want to end with a story. I'm old and I have stories. So the process of drafting policy, I've done this a lot, and in watching, I have a few concerns, because one of the things, when I've sat on committees and policy committees, is we have to allow the committee space and time to do its work. There's a lot of research involved. There's technical research, the Idaho Commission for Libraries, there's the US Constitution, Idaho's Constitution, Idaho statutes, and any policy that flows here. So that's a very time-consuming process to make sure everything aligns. And sometimes a public forum is not the place where we can compose our thoughts. And so my experience in drafting policy is that when the final draft is available, and this is very important, there has to be fair representation. And so we have about 7,000, give or take, registered voters in Boundary County, and each of these registered voters has an opportunity to vote for their board members. It's very important in the final, when the final product is presented, that we follow a process that is fair. And that means that testimony that is given is accessible. I probably don't reflect people in Boundary County. I don't think this audience here reflects people in Boundary County. So we have to make sure that there's an opportunity for all of those who support this library to do that. I would recommend an opportunity to give written testimony, because that also allows the board and the committee some think time to process all of this. It makes it accessible. There are a lot of people today who are not here because they're living their lives. They're holding down jobs, they're earning money. They can't be here like I can. My second one is the product. And when we produce policy, policy has to be fair. And policy cannot exclude and it cannot compel. And that becomes very difficult when we're passionate about things, okay? Not everybody in the community thinks like me. They don't have the same interests as me. They don't have the same likes as I do. So now there's a story. I'm old. And what I'm seeing unfolding in this room is very much like unfolded in the 1950s when I was in elementary school. And Joe McCarthy was holding his hearings, and my dad was all in on Tail Gunner Joe. And my dad was angry, and he was afraid, and by God, he wanted some things done. And something happened, because we were talking one day, and my dad said to me, he says, you know, I'm gonna confess.
Time's up. You did that to me, time's up.
Okay, I'll
Nope,
send,
don't
I'll send
finish.
it in written, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
Adrian?
So, I first want to speak in regards to the reconsideration process. Something that you guys haven't considered, I have watched reconsideration processes on YouTube videos and so forth. This is actually a timely process that probably shouldn't happen in 15 minutes. Most of the boards throughout the US actually do it under a special meeting and not under the regular meeting. So that's something to consider. If you don't give the patron that's concerned a chance to feel like they've actually had a fair way to express themselves and be going through the process and so forth, they're going to be offended. I think we saw that last year. Second of all, I have some of those books. I have 3 of them by Ellen Hopkins. And one of her books, she states about, and this is in the young adult 12 to 18 section, she states about sex, heroin, meth, and other drugs. She also has a point in her book where a boy talks about shooting himself in the head instead of the chest. And this is in your young adult 12 to 18. I did tell Bob that I was holding on to the books. I did get a letter the other day that says I'm gonna get fined. So I would like to, on a book like that, I don't believe that book should be removed. I think it should be moved upstairs to the adult section. I don't believe that's children's content, especially when our schools are receiving such a high suicide rate from what I'm hearing. That's why we're having resource officers there. There's a lot of trouble going in our high schools, middle schools. So I don't think books like this in children's hands are good. So I would recommend, if you don't mind hearing me out, to maybe add to your reconsideration a section that says, what would you like, patron? Would you like this book removed, kept? Well, obviously kept would be the board's decision. Or would you like to have it moved to another section? So if you guys wouldn't mind considering adding that to it. I don't believe all books should be removed. And I don't think that all patrons are gonna come to you guys asking for them to be removed. I've heard some comments earlier and I just wanted to reply on this. Everyone needs to remember the history behind this movement. The original concern was to ask the board to update a policy to give guidelines to the director on what she or he is allowed to order. This was never about the illusion of that these books were in our library. We've never claimed that these books were in our library. It was always about a director who had told 5 people that she would bring the books in if people had requested them. So this was always about a policy update. It was never about removing books that were never in our library. And I think people, it's been a year, and people need to remember what the original intentions were. Because there's a lot of rumors and gossip, and people tend to put on their Facebook pages saying things that are not correct. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so that was the only 3 folks that signed up to speak today. Is there anybody else that would like to? Okay. So, I guess that, what I will do is, again, I will do my best to get out a copy of the changes that we have talked about today and incorporate the ones that I missed last time. And we will be meeting on February 1st at 10 in this building to go through this again. I think it's going to take at least one more meeting after the February 1st meeting to conclude with this whole process. So to me, it makes sense to try and get the Wednesday the 12th as well in February. I think that was the other day she gave me the option of, so that we can
Hold it in reserve.
hold it in reserve.
And if we don't need it, we can.
Right.
That sounds like a good idea.
So it'd be the eighth.
Wait a second,
Our
let me,
meeting's on the first and the other one's on the eighth.
I thought the eighth
but the
was
15th
not.
15.
the
The
15th,
15th,
it must be then. Yes, it is the 15th, so what I will do is I will ask her if we can reserve the 15th, and so if we can get this done on the 1st, we're done, if we can't do that, then we come back on the 15th. And again, I think what I will do is I will go through and I will make this just a straight black and white copy. And then we just do that at the next meeting, we go through it. I have a question, do we want to do the same thing, because it has to be on the agenda if we're going to allow speaking? Do we want to do the same
Yeah,
thing at the end?
let's do it,
Yes.
yeah.
So 30 minutes seems like a good number, and
3-minute blocks.
3-minute blocks. If we're good with that, I will put that on the agenda, and I will get out the copy as soon as I can, and I will send it to Adrian and the newspapers and all that kind of stuff.
And since there is a reference in the future of what we're discussing about the material request form for requesting material into the
I
library.
will get that from the library,
That can be-
and we will have
If you
an
can, yeah,
example
you
of
can send
that.
that to us too, that would be great.
I will include that in the email that comes out with the minutes.
Okay, that'd be great.
Nice.
So do you guys have any questions for me?
No?
No?
I was just gonna say, just to clear up in my mind, appendix A is that library bill of rights,
Yes,
correct? That's the
correct.
only appendix we have right now.
Right, and I need to figure out how to incorporate the,
Yeah, we can look
Case
through these for the next
citation.
one, yeah. we'll-
Yeah, we can discuss that, I just,
Okay.
I wanted to get
Cause
it
that
out and
possibly
question
will
right
be
now.
an appendix, right, we don't,
we don't know
we
that
have to
yet.
look at it.
Okay, okay. All right, and what did you have, Doug?
Well, just to clarify, I'm calling them Thursday, February 1st, same location, same time, and we were also locked in the 15th.
Yes. It seems like that would be good, so then we don't have to wonder.
Okay, yeah, I need to, plug up the phone line here, I'm just, making sure I'm following correctly, and then I'm also following, later today or tomorrow, with some of those products online,
Okay, and then, I think what I will try to do next time, so we can kind of avoid, if people aren't available, is to be here and they'll call in on the phone, I'll try and get the packets out to each person at your email. Is that gonna work? And that way, we won't have the same problem we had today.
Can you talk to them about
Well,
using this phone?
I will be back, I fly back the 25th, so I will be, all of February, just,
Okay, and then, again, I will talk to Andrew, the, emergency management guy, and see if we can figure out how to do the
Yeah,
phone.
cause at one meeting I've been to, they've used this hardwire by phone line to,
And it seems like that would be a lot simpler than this. The only problem is that there's only one phone line, so if you have multiple people, we'll still be doing the.
well, it might be able to do a group call if there's more than one person on the hardwire
Wow,
phone.
yeah,
So,
okay, I will put that on my
I
list.
don't, yeah,
Can you
but,
Zoom?
Yeah, that's what I just thought, I'm like, how can people listen?
So the problem with Zoom is you can only do it for 45 minutes
Oh,
for
that's
free,
right,
and
yeah.
we don't have,
Yeah,
As-
I don't have
the
access.
county doesn't have an access.
I make a motion that we adjourn this meeting.
I know.
Well, they're not, but they're not a district, they're on their own district.
No, I'm
Yeah,
good.
but the county could move petty cash for $100.
You can't even get the commissioners to stream their meetings.
Confidential discount.
Yes.